So first things first, before I start off this little video here, I just want to make a observation. This is a poster on my wall, and it is a drawing by Naoko Takeuchi in the fourth art book for the fourth season, or fourth series of the manga. And if you look specifically at this, they have Phobos and Deimos listed differently according to what the movie says. So on this one, the red one is Deimos and the purple one is Phobos. But in the movie, the red one is Phobos and the purple one is Deimos. Just an interesting little snippet, let's say. And as we get back here, sorry guys, let me just fix this. Alright. Konnichiwa, minaboku wa Jeremy desu. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. And I'm back in my room with another review because the Sailor Moon movies, the Eternal movies, have finally been released. And that's exciting. So I've just finished watching part 1. And the nice thing about Netflix, this is kind of my second time using Netflix, but first time by myself, so I know. I'm old. What do you expect? But is that you could see like both of the movies at the same time. I'm glad that they released it that way, unlike in Japan where you had to wait a month in between them. It was going to be longer, I think, originally if it would have been released in September 2020, but it wasn't, so lots of weird stuff happening. This movie covers basically the dream chapters 1 through 6 and kind of changes 6 around a little bit because 6 generally focuses more on the outer Senshi, but also the story of Minako and trying to get her powers, and all of a sudden, you know, I guess to make it work with the timeline in the movie. This is kind of exactly where I figured, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in another video, in speculation of this, where they would cut them. It just made the most sense. It's just, at the end of the credits, we finally see the outer Senshi again. You kind of see them interlaid throughout, like in memories and all that kind of stuff with the others. But you actually see I should say Hotaru, not Sailor Saturn yet, at the post-end credits. And the credits play 2 songs. The new one by Momoiro Clovers, I can't remember the name of it, and Watashi Tachi ni Naritakute, which is like the, but it's like the shorter version, and I think it's the voice cast that performs it. And I'm assuming we're going to get Rashiku Ikimasho by Anza at the end of the second part of the movie. We'll see. And that would make sense because that's how they did it with Super S. They originally had those two. Yeah, anyway. So, okay. Am I right about that? Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. Well, I in my mind, I'm thinking that's the Sailor Stars ending theme. I am so out of it. I'm so sorry, guys. Anyway, I'm way ahead of myself here, but what I'm planning on doing with this video is one big video, but it's also going to be like kind of a mixture of the first movie and the second movie. So I'm stopping it now while it's all fresh in my mind, and then I'll review the second part, and then we'll see how things go. So I wrote some notes, and another thing I wanted to mention, aside from the Phobos and Deimos thing, is I am getting serious Yzma vibes from Zirconia in the animation, the expressions, and even like the sound, because I'll be upfront, I watched the Viz Media dub voice actors with the Netflix script, and there's some really weird things, but overall it's not too bad. It's just it's odd. A friend of mine mentioned something about the honorifics being strange in that they used them wrong. I didn't really notice them using it wrong. I noticed it more that they're just overusing them, and really they're not. They're using them, it sounds like they're overusing it in an English way because we're not used to the San-chan thing all the time. But if you really watch like the Japanese versions, like even throughout the original series, everything, it's used a lot. Mamo-san, Mamo-chan, Usagi-chan, Usa, like, it just sounds a little weird because they didn't really do that with the Viz dub that much. And even with the Deke Cloverway dub, you never really heard that either at all. So it's a little odd, I think, to us having it all of a sudden, just because it is a different company that was dubbing it, though they're using most of the Viz voice cast. I think Helios's voice is different. The pronunciations are interesting. They're not bad. I'm happy they went with lemurs. I think in the English one with Cloverway it was the Remulus, which might not be that wrong either, but again, it's the translation thing too. But I always called them lemurs, so. I am still not really sold on the Viz voices per se. The actresses do their best, and some of them are, like, they're obviously all fans, which I really appreciate. I think that that's great. But in my heart, I will always look at Sailor Moon's voice being Terry Hawkes. And Luna is a British older nanny in my mind. I've never, ever, ever noticed her as being like this young kind of like guide presence in Usagi's life. I always thought of her as more mature and older type of thing. So I always thought that Jill Frappe's voice better suited her. Ami still throws me off. I don't know. There's a lot of weirdness there, but I've been watching the English one, yeah. Anyway, so Yzma Zirconia is what I wrote down on here. There's just, especially when they have the scenes in the Dead Moon Circus tent, the facial expressions and just the vocal tones and stuff. I just get Yzma from like Emperor's New Grooves, if you're not aware. So, also, I kind of had a spoiler of some of the stuff because I got this Sailor Moon Eternal art book a while ago, and one of the things I was so excited about was that we're going to see Ami's mother, who is a doctor. You probably can't see from there, but and then the other thing is how they drew Rei's grandpa, and it's basically the same way that they are in the manga, which really just goes to show that they were committed to following the manga as close as possible compared to the original series, which Rei's grandpa was a little balding kind of perverted old man, and in this one he's more like I shouldn't say normal, but just an older man, and both of them play minor roles in this, but it kind of does flesh out the characters of the Senshi a little more. I felt like they are rushing it a lot. It feels very rushed, and that was one thing I was worried about, was how it was going to translate between doing a TV series versus a movie, and they're kind of balancing it okay, but it is very, very fast. And I really, really wish Sailor Stars would get the treatment of a full series. I think that deserves it. I know the Dream Saga was never a very popular one, both in manga form and the original anime series especially. So maybe it was a smart thing to do it as movies in this iteration. But I do think that Stars should get its own full series. We haven't heard anything yet. We just know it's supposed to be continued. But yeah. Okay. So continuing on. How is it? So this is one thing I've always thought was funny about the Sailor Moon anime and the manga, I guess, versus the live action series. In the live action series, the Senshi in their regular forms don't really fully resemble what they look like when they transform. They have normal hair, brown hair, black hair, like normal human colored hair that isn't like pre-colored and all that. When they transform, that's when they get their colored hair. So it makes sense that people don't understand that that's who they are, like their identities. But why is it that in the anime series they look exactly the same whether they're in their Senshi uniforms or not? But even they can't recognize themselves. The two specific points in this are Sailor Mercury and Jupiter. Mars had Phobos and Deimos help her awaken her power. But I mean, she saw like a smaller version of herself in the mirror house, which, okay, it's fine. But, like, how did Ami not realize? She's like, who are you? When she sees Super Sailor Mercury. I mean, yes, it's a super form of her, but it's still Sailor Mercury. And Makoto with the same thing. Sailor Jupiter, Super Sailor Jupiter. They're both like, who are you? Do you not recognize yourself? Is there some weird thing that's in the Sailor Moon universe with the anime, especially that they I don't know. I just find this hilarious. It's ridiculous. It's just one of those funny canon busting things. I don't know. It's strange to me. I just find that really, really funny. Now, another thing that I'm approaching this having not reread the manga. I really wanted to do it before I watched this, but I haven't had time to do it. So I'm going off by memory here. And I did check a little bit just before I started this here. And yes, and I remember the scene in the manga too. Hokusai, dressed in a dress, and the fact that Makoto addressed Hokusai as they, them in the scene with Chibiusa back at her apartment was just amazing, and really goes to show that it was ahead of its time before. Like, we're in 2021 now. The Sailor Moon manga was done, and I think it was 94 or 95-ish is when Super S was, or the Dream Arc was written. And then you have the anime series around the same time, 95. And, but the anime was different. Like, Hokusai and Tiger's Eye were portrayed as the masculine, going after the ladies. Fisheye was the gay one, although in the English dub originally, Fisheye was given a female voice to be female presenting. And although they still had that really weird thing where there was like the ballet episode where Fisheye was shirtless, but was still portrayed as a girl, and they felt that was okay to show. I mean, wouldn't that be more confusing to the kids? I don't know. Anyway, but the fact that they said they, them, and then that Fisheye was cradling Ami as if he was interested in her, versus how in the original English, or not the original English, the original series, Super S series, Fisheye, I'm getting them mixed up. Fisheye was definitely gay, going after the guys and stuff like that. But Hokusai is the one that's portrayed as they, them. And that's really, really great. And the fact that June is Pride Month is I mean, this is a great tie-in here. So that's something that I actually remember vocalizing, wow. Like, it surprised me with that, even though I know I've read it before in the manga, but it was just perfect. It was just perfect, and that's something that genuinely surprised me with this. So, the other thing that's interesting versus the original anime is that the trio have dreams. They're not seen nearly as long as you see them in the Super S original anime series. In fact, I think you see them more than the Amazonas Quartet in that one. Whereas now the balance has shifted. It's just like the manga. The Amazonas Quartet are the ones in charge, basically. But it's interesting that they say that they have dreams. And you have Hokusai especially telling Sailor Jupiter to keep chasing her dreams because this was the end of his dream. And that was really sad. It does humanize them. And the Amazon trio have a much sadder end in this iteration than they did in the original anime series. So I kind of resonated with that a little bit there. And but it's just interesting the different dynamic that they have there, because they didn't understand what dreams were at first, and then until towards the end of their run in the original anime. So they're getting that in there. I do feel that the movies are trying to put as much in as possible, which is why they feel rushed. But they're also trying to give us more of a backstory of each of the Senshi, more so and in a faster way than any of the other 3 seasons of Crystal did, which I guess goes back to the manga series as well too, because that's what they're basing the source material off of, is basically chapter for chapter. So it's really interesting in that respect, and I think that that's where it kind of fails a little bit, and it would have been better to devote an entire series to it, just like they had with Sailor Moon Crystal. Give each one the episodes to focus on it and really get deep dive into these things. But they do handle it well. It's also weird that, like, the very first time Sailor Moon and Chibi Moon transform into their super forms, they're given the kaleidoscopes by Helios, but he doesn't explain to them, first of all, how to transform. He explains to them how to use the kaleidoscopes, kind of, but he doesn't explain to them what to say to transform. And I know this has kind of been done before in some ways, but when you watch the original anime, there was usually somebody there that kind of gave Sailor Moon or them the guidance of what to say to transform. But now it's like they just knew what to say, both of them at the same time, and it's it's a little weird to me that they're, anyway, whatever. Again, probably just for the hope of saving time and just moving the plot along. So whatever, it's fine. It's a small gripe. It seems that Pala Pala is the leader. Now, Ves always seemed to be the leader and as far as I was concerned, watching the original anime series, even the manga, in my mind, I'm thinking that Vesves was the one that was kind of the take charge person. But really, Pala Pala is the one that has all the power. If you look at, she's the one that they keep calling on with the little balls and stuff like that. She's the one that causes most of the mayhem and stuff. And in the Cloverway dub, she was portrayed as really, really kind of, childish, more so than the other three. In this one, she's kind of on par with the rest of them, kind of shows a little more power, more get up and go than the other ones do, and it's an interesting dynamic shift there as well. The voices for the quartet, they sound like Valley Girls. I mean, they did in the original one, too, like English dub as well. Maybe that's how they're supposed to be portrayed, just in general, like they're young girls, but they have a very Valley Girl style to them, and I guess that hasn't really changed too much. Voice-wise, I think I prefer the Cloverway dub versions of them, but that's also what I grew up with too. So they're not bad. I mean, they're doing a great job. So and it gets the point across there. So with the previous movies, the R movie, the S movie, and the Super S movie from the original series, I often found myself watching them going, it would be interesting to see more of the attacks and things like that. And, we always got at least one attack from each of the Senshi, sometimes two. But in this one, already, we've seen Gorgeous Meditation several times. And it really goes to show that they're still trying to pull the episodic thing where they always use that finishing move. But they're throwing it into a movie that's an hour and 21 minutes. And so it becomes very repetitive a lot faster than it does when you just watch it episode by episode, which would normally be broken up week to week. Well, with Crystal's schedule, it was like 2 to 3 weeks sometimes. So, but yeah, that's one thing that I really noticed, and I'm sure we're going to see even more of it too. But you don't get the full sequence of it either, at least not yet. Maybe in the second part we will, with the final battle with Nehelenia, although that's usually when they cut it. They make it small. I don't know. We're going to see. We'll see. We'll see if that changes. What else do I have here? So this one also establishes the story after Jupiter's story, just like in the manga. They find out that Mamoru has been coughing up black blood. He's got the shadow of the rose inside of him. There's the prelude that Usagi's going to get this by the end of the movie. She starts coughing. And we find out that the whole reason that this has even transpired is because of the fall of the White Moon, when Queen Beryl attacked, and that broke the seal of Nehelenia, which was sent to the dark side of the moon. Basically, very similar story to what happened in the original anime too. But you get that kind of just thrown out there. And when they did the focus on Minako's power-up, I never realized, even though I went back and looked, and yes, it's definitely in the manga, when she is hanging there, I never realized that Artemis gets crushed by a rock. And it really drives it home when you see the blood come down his arm, or his paw, I guess, onto her arm. But then, of course, he turns into a human and just lifts up the rock, and the blood disappears, and they establish this thing that they've always been this duo, and as a partnership, that's why she hasn't been able to transform, because he hasn't been a great partner. So why was it that she was able to transform in the previous seasons without him? And why is it that Luna wasn't the one that gave Usagi the powers? Like, she gave the disguise pen, she gave all that stuff in the original one, so maybe that's what they're drawing a parallel to, but it is weird that it's Helios that gave them the power this time. I don't know. It's a weird disconnect in my mind. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but it's just an observation I'll just post out there. So, yeah. Each Senshi had a bit of focus, which was great. Like I said, I would have loved it if they had the individual episodes. We finally see Ami's mom. We finally see Rei's grandpa, which I think should have made an appearance in Crystal, but he never did. So now we have him in the movie, which is fine. There was that weird Phobos Deimos thing, so either this is wrong or that's wrong, or I have no idea. I'm pointing this way because my computer's over there. So that's what I've been watching it on. But overall, so far it's pretty good. It's lacking in some ways. Not animation-wise. The animation's very, very good. A lot of people were worried about it. It's got that step up just slightly from Season 3, which was far superior to Season 1 and 2. when they're doing their speeches after they transform, you had that thing where you see these overly long arms and like these overly big poses and stuff in the first 2 seasons, and that was corrected in season 3 and continued on to season 4. It's much better. They don't look like they've got gargantuan appendages compared to what a regular person would have. So that's nice. I'm really happy about that. They don't look like brat dolls anymore transforming like they did in the first 2 seasons. Again, season 3 had fixed that. And there's lots of callback to the outer Senshi, which is good because that ties everything into what we're going to see in the second movie. And hopefully it doesn't disappoint. So I'm really excited to look into it. I do wish that the trio had more screen time. I understand why they didn't, because again, they didn't really in the manga. But let us find out how the second half goes, and we will see. We will see. All right, thank you for watching so far, and I will be right back. Okay, I have just watched the second part of the Sailor Moon Eternal movies, and wow, much more happening than the first one. And I just want to say too, like I started off with the other one, I am crazy. But, you know that adage of, am I crazy? But, okay, in this scene, I hope this will translate well. In this scene here, right at the beginning of it, if you look here, there's a book on the shelf in the background. It's really hard to tell what it is, but it resonates with me as potentially one of these, but could actually be this book. Wow, that's really dark. I'm sorry. It looks so familiar, and it could even be a different picture, but I think it's like a Sailor Moon like Easter egg in the background there. So I don't know. I just wanted to get that out of the way before I continue on, because if that's the case, that's amazing. I love things like that, as I'm sure most people do. So let's go. I have pages of notes on this one here because there is just so much more to kind of get through. So let's go ahead and do this as much as we can. So first of all, I wanted to say there's a couple things I forgot to mention in the last for part 1. How the male villains in the Dead Moon Circus were portrayed very effeminately. Not a bad thing, just something I noticed. And why wasn't Minako fazed at all by the fact that Artemis turned into a human? Like, there was nothing. Like, she wasn't shocked. She was just talking to him like everything was normal. So, has she seen it before? Will we get that Sailor V prequel that we've been wanting for a long time once Sailor Stars is done? I don't know. Okay, so we have Yzma Zirconia, Rita Repulsa Zirconia. It's voiced by the same person who did Rita's voice in Power Rangers in the English dub. And yes, I watched the whole thing, both movies in the English dub. Still getting used to it, and I still favor Terry Hawks as Sailor Moon. But they all did a good job. Saturn sounds... Okay, Hotaru sounds fine. But as a grown-up girl around the age of Chibi Moon, she sounds too old. If that makes sense. She just sounds too old for her size and age in comparison to the others. But this was the great thing, because now the shift focused onto the outers. And had these movies been the basis, or had the Super S original season followed the manga and gave us this but in episodic form, it would have not been the bottom of the barrel in terms of fan choices. Not a lot of people are big fans of Super S. It's not a secret that the original series was, 4th season was not as well liked as the others. It always consistently ends up on the bottom rung in comparison to the others. But wow, what an amazing, amazing movie. The animation was great, but again, a lot of stuff felt a little bit rushed. However, the outers did get a nice little kind of piece of it right at the beginning to focus on them. And let's get into it. So we had the bookstore scene there, and it was mentioned, and now this is where things get a little bit confusing. And I went back and I checked it out a couple times because I'm like, did they really say that? There's contradictory information that we're being given here. So this takes place 6 months after the events of Sailor Moon S, basically. So Hotaru became a baby, and Haruka, Michiru, and Setsuna took her, and they went to start a new life. all of a sudden they weren't able to transform anymore. They were hoping for this like time of peace. Michiru gave the mirror to Chibiusa as a token of a promise that they would be back one day. And so we see that happen a lot of the time throughout the movies. You see Chibiusa with the mirror, Rei borrowed it for a little while, and so on and so forth. But when Setsuna's telling her story about the premonition, she was working at the observatory when there was the eclipse that happened. But then she says that that was 6 months ago. So, are we to, like, this is supposed to be happening at the same time as the events that are going on with the Dead Moon Circus first starting out. So, at first I'm like, wait, has 6 months supposed to have, like, happened in between all this? But no, because they show up at the point at the end of the last movie where the Senshi are captured by the Amazoness quartet, and so there's some kind of continuity error there, because 6 months prior to the start of this whole thing was where the end of S was happening. But if you remember correctly, they the end of season 3 ended with them looking at this solar eclipse and then seeing the Pegasus, and it's all over the place. It's everywhere. And I guess Michiru was in Vienna doing a concert. Haruka was in Africa at a race thing, and Setsuna was at the observatory. Now, you see the daddy Haruka, so Haruka adopting that image, the male image again, or masculine image, I should say. Mami Michiru, Mami Setsuna. Hotaru, that's how she refers to them as. And so there we get this scene where Hotaru she's been growing up. They make mention of this. She's been getting older faster. Setsuna points out, well, okay, something's obviously happening here. Why do you have this accelerated growth? And then Hotaru starts playing the violin around these kids, I guess these kids that come for lessons with Michiru, and I guess they've seen this Pegasus appear before whenever Hotaru plays, and it's established that Hotaru, like Rei, like Setsuna, and to an extent Michiru with the mirror, all of them have these premonition abilities. So this scene plays out of Pegasus and then Chibiusa appearing, and Hotaru starting to kind of like, I know this. Why do I know this? And then you see Pegasus dies, and Chibiusa, or Sailor Chibi Moon rather, is upset about this, of course, and this is what kind of starts leading into things. There's a scene where it's nighttime, and Hotaru obviously still has her powers of recreating things, and she's guiding this universe thing, and Haruka is there to help keep Hotaru's power in check. I thought that was pretty neat. And then they get to the point where they can see that they had the solar eclipse happen, and the Earth is covered in a dark veil. Hotaru goes to have a bath, and that's when she meets her Saturn self, and doesn't know who she is. So again, continuing on with that, who are you? But I mean, she's a little kid at this point, so I guess that kind of makes sense. She wouldn't always fully remember that. Her memories are starting to come back. Sailor Saturn basically commands her to awaken, because they have their new destiny that's going to come up. And I actually wrote down Saturn sounds too old. Like, she just sounds, for her size and age, supposedly, she just sounds too old. So I don't know if that was just a stylistic choice of the actress, or maybe she couldn't project it at like the 3 stages of an age, or maybe the producers or director asked for it. I don't know. But anyway, that was there. So the outer story basically is the first 15 minutes of the second movie, which is great. And then we get the title card about 13 minutes in, and then you see the outers appear at the big top, and then they transform. We finally get a Sailor Saturn transformation, which is awesome, and it basically mirrors what came in the Sega Saturn, see, the old Sega Saturn Sailor Moon game. It's very similar. The transformation is very similar. She doesn't get like a solo one, it's a group one, but whatever, it's still more than we got with the original anime series. Okay. Chibiusa, we have a throwback short transformation because, of course, Usagi was getting sick in the last movie, and then now it's getting worse, and she's in bed, and so Chibiusa goes off to transform and find the others, and basically we get like that short transformation sequence that we had in the third season of the original series, where she just, holds up the thing, and you just see her transform. That was kind of neat. So they all end up going to face off against the Amazoness Quartet after the Outers have saved the inner Senshi. That we have this like battle going on, and then we have Mamoru and Usagi that join them, join Chibiusa, and they're all like, "Oh my God, the Outers are awake! Yay!" Like they have this big moment, and then Usagi and Mamoru are hit by Zirconia, which then basically makes them small. And for their own safety, Helios appears and takes them away. Now it's fine. It's funny that he's stuck in this cage as a Pegasus form, but can still kind of turn into the Pegasus as like a spirit, and even as Helios human form. There's a lot of play with things there, which is fine. But so we get the Silence Glaive surprise. Now, this has always been something where I've been like, okay, how does this work? Because she has the Silence Glaive surprise, Death Ribbon Revolution, and Silence Wall. But in Sailor Moon Another Story, the Death Ribbon Revolution is a power, like just a regular power with a bunch of ribbons and stuff like that. And in Stars, like the starting of Stars, we were led to kind of believe that Silence Glaive Surprise was the power that would destroy the world when they were facing off against Niharenia. Here, it's just a regular power attack that wouldn't kill Saturn or anything like that. So that's always kind of been an enigmatic, weird thing that I've struggled trying to realize, okay, which one is the actual destructive one? Because in different canons, including the musicals too, it's all over the place. Saturn knows about the Amazoness Quartet. Like, when we say spiritual awakening, Saturn is on the ball with everything. She seems to be able to immediately sense, hey, these people are being screwed over and used by this dark power of the Dead Moon Circus. And she's trying to convince them this, and it almost works. June, I should say, puts out her hand, and then Zirconia catches it, and she's like, "How dare you! I took you under my care! At last, I am free! It's time to conquer the earth!" I wanted her to be like Rita, and just say that, because, Power Rangers. And I love the fact that there's that Sailor Moon Power Rangers thing, because Naoko Takeuchi was a big fan of it, and Star Trek The Next Generation. Anyway, yeah. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So, Saturn knows about the Amazoness Quartet, and this time the quartet doesn't have any dreams, or they say they don't have any dreams, whereas before in the original anime it was the trio that didn't have dreams, and I guess maybe all of them were kind of taken away from them. Anyway, they're sealed and put into the mirror. Zirconia puts them in there with Niharenia, and then we get this dream sequence with a young Mamoru and Usagi, and here's where we get an interesting dynamic of include kind of a throwback or call out to the Black Dream Hole movie, the Super S movie, because there was a similar sequence, kind of, in that Mamoru is going on about what his dream is to just be there with Usagi, and he wants to be a great husband, and she realizes, she's like, okay, this isn't real. Mamoru would never actually say that kind of thing, and it's kind of a sad thing when you think about it, but she realizes, and she wakes up, and Mamoru smacks her, although I'm not sure if I'm getting that mixed up with a thing a little bit later, but there's one point where he smacks her to wake her up, and it's funny. So, we have that dream sequence there, and it's the Black Dream Hole type thing. It's kind of neat because we have three different groups, three different factions going on here. We have Saturn and Chibiusa and the Amazoness girls, quartet, on one. Then you have Usagi and Mamoru and Helios in another, and then you have the inners and the outers. It's not that dissimilar to what happens in the first 6 episodes of Sailor Star's original anime, where they're kind of separated, but it's a different kind of faction of how they're separated. But it's still a neat little thing there too. We have Oh, Helios, when he was praying in Elysian, I always want to call it Elysian, it was Chibiusa. It was Princess Lady Serenity. So Chibiusa's grown-up form. I guess kind of like what Black Lady would have been, but in the good version, Princess Serenity. She's the one that directs him to the fact that he needs to find this maiden, which is actually going to be Sailor Moon, is the one that he needs to help with. But it's kind of like she is, but in the end, it's kind of Chibiusa at the same time. Like there's this whole thing, and you have this romantic sub story. Chibiusa's falling for Helios, and she's moving away from the romantic feelings for her father, like her future father, and getting kind of a boy of her own. So that's an interesting thing that they could always work on in the future. The Celtic style music, the flutes and the violins, absolutely beautiful. Crystal has never had bad music. It's got amazing music. It's got very fantastical, fantasy style, beautiful music, and this is definitely no different. It's amazing. It's cinematically amazing. We get to see the golden crystal and the silver crystal, and then Helios is trying to protect the prince and the princess. He's like, yeah, please, princess, you've got to use your crystal to find the golden crystal. And then she's like, well, if the silver crystal was inside of me, it stands to reason that the golden crystal is inside of Mamoru. The Barazuisho, as it's also known, and Bara is like rose, and there's a story about that. Bara means rose. Why would it mean rose? Like a rosebud. Why is Bara like the Yahweh equivalent, kind of more on the anyway we'll just continue on there, like rosebud. Helios dies trying to protect them. Zirconia transports everybody into a nightmare, and Moon manages to save Saturn and Chibiusa, and Saturn saves the Amazoness balls. So okay, that's where that point comes in. Sailor Moon meets up with Nehelenia when they go back to Elysian, all of them together, and she goes to use the gorgeous meditation against her, and it basically reflects back off the mirror and sends all of them, the whole group, into this kaleidoscope, because it's basically the power. But that triggers an old memory. Now here is where I always thought that there is like an allegory, I think that's the right word, for Sleeping Beauty, because this story is so similar. There's a parallel to it, maybe that's better, to Sleeping Beauty, because you have this evil queen that lives on the moon, in the dark side of it, and she is the uninvited one that's not invited to come to the coronation, and she's the evil one that ends up getting banished, and in doing so has a curse that she puts on everybody on the moon, which is that the Moon Kingdom was going to fall. Hence, there you go, Queen Beryl comes because of Metalia, and ultimately in Sailor Stars we're going to find out, spoiler alert, that they all come from the same thing, the Galaxy Cauldron, but still, without light there is no dark, without dark there is no light, and that is a key element that's going to propel the series forward. These movies really set the stage for what we're going to see in Sailor Stars. So, the Moon Kingdom falls, you see the Sailor Senshi, and you like in their little kid form, they're older than the princess, but they vow that they're going to be her court, the ones that protect her. And while this is going on, their memories are starting to come back, and then you see Saturn. Now Saturn was a key here because she is very wise. Her and Pluto have basically seen everything go down over the years. They basically know everything that's going on. But really there was a huge focus on Sailor Saturn here, which is great because we never really get a lot of Sailor Saturn-centric stuff. Like in the original series especially, there was, like, yes, she played a role, but never really anything that really spotlighted on her as the Sailor Senshi and giving her a nice spotlight. So I'm really glad that they did that. We get the Sailor Senshi princess forms, because now you have Sailor Moon, and Nehelenia took the silver crystal out of her, but Mamoru stepped forward and said, no, we can't die here, I'm going to use my power, please lend me yours. And then, so because Usagi is so connected to the silver crystal, she's able to basically call it back from out of Nehelenia's grasps, and together they're able to make this new power, the Sailor Senshi turn into their princess forms, and then their guardian selves, like their crystal forms or whatever, the Senshi, show up and tell them, congratulations, you've awoken this new power. Again, they're looking at them and they're like, who are you? Like, it's just weird to me. I don't know, you know, whatever. It's part of the script. It's part of the story. So they go from their Senshi princess forms into Super Sailor Senshi forms, and then all the cats appear, and they're in their human forms. So that's awesome. We finally get to see that. We only ever saw Luna as a human in the original one, and that was just in the movie. And actually, while I'm talking about that, and I should have brought this over before, I'm just going to interject with the fact that we have a new Sailor Moon musical that is coming out this year. Brand new cast, all female again, and it's utilizing the story of the lover of Princess Kaguya, which is what the Sailor Moon S movie was based on, of course. And yeah, we have an actress that's playing Luna as a cat, and then we have Luna as a human, and we have the princess, the Snow Queen right over here, and Kakeru and Himeko, and then all of this. Oh, that's awesome. And that's coming out in October, I believe, or November or September, somewhere in there. But I'm super excited. The DVD should be out hopefully by next March, and I can add it to my continuous musical collection. But yes, this is awesome. I am so excited about this. Okay. Moving right along. The princesses tell them that they have to call upon the powers of their castles, and there's all the castles and stuff outside of their planets. Now, we've never really seen them. I don't remember them showing them in any part of Crystal. It might just be my memory. I know in the manga it shows them, but each of them calls out their castle name, and then that's what powers up their crystals. They become the Super Sailor Senshi, and that is awesome. And then, of course, they give their power to the Holy Grail, which has changed its form, and then that's what propels Sailor Moon to turn into Eternal Sailor Moon, and she uses Starlight Honeymoon Therapy Kiss, so which we didn't see until the first 6 episodes of Sailor Stars in the original series, but it is written into the manga source material. So you have this light and darkness allegory, and it really does set things up for Sailor Stars, because, you know, there's the light and the dark, the Galaxy Cauldron, Galaxia, Chaos. Sailor Chaos is like the antithesis of Sailor Moon, basically, and that's what we're going to get into. So, everything's saved, Nihilenia is sealed away, and everything starts to return to normal. So they go back to Elysian, and Chibiusa is really scared because she thinks that Helios is dead, kind of. The maidens lead her up to them, and she manages to bring him back in like a kind of Sleeping Beauty continuation, but it's the opposite. So she kisses him and basically wakens him up. And now she wants him to be her prince in the future when she gets old enough for it. And while this is going on, Saturn appeals to the prince, or the king and the queen now, because that's what Serenity and Endymion have basically turned into, is their future selves, to save the Amazoness quartet, because she's known all along that they were actually, you know, guardians as well. And they awaken as Sailor Ceres, Juno, Pallas, and Vesta, which are asteroids, and they are the asteroid Senshi, which will be the future court of Sailor Chibi Moon. And now that we have them, because we've never had them do that in the original anime, they should carry on into Sailor Stars and be a big part of the final kind of battle area. And I won't give away too much if you haven't gotten that far, but they will make an appearance in there. Moon Color Chainen is the name of the song, by the way, the theme song that we had on both movies, and I was right. Rashiku Ikimasho was the other ending theme that they played, again, just the first chorus version or TV version, as sung by Anza, who played Sailor Moon in the musicals from 1993 to 1998, and was probably my favorite one. So, these movies were really, 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 really amazingly well done. I still think parts were a little rushed, but that's par for the course when you condense so much of what should have been episodic into movie form. They still hold up pretty good, though, and had these movies been what we would have gotten in the original Super S anime, like spread out in episodic form, you know, with some of the filler, whatever, and really kind of diving into more of these themes, it would not have been as hated. I shouldn't say hated, it's just disliked. The 4th season is not as liked as the other ones in the original anime. But wow, Like, they just go into so much more detail, and it's very dark in comparison. Like, the most egregious thing was leaving out the outer Senshi. And yes, we got a Haruka and Michiru storyline in, like, the Super S specials with the Puppet Master in the original one, but it's not the same. Like, uniting everybody together, I mean, this storyline's almost better than the third season story, where you get all the introductions of all of them, but like, it's just, it was well done, and you got to see their powers. And you know, Moon Gorgeous Meditation didn't happen as much in the second one, of course, but I guess they had to get it in there because obviously if it was an episodic series, you get it more than it appeared in the movies. I was just, you know, just me being like whatever. But I loved it. It was great. And you know, people were so worried about it, but really it just turned out amazingly well. And I'm super, super happy that we got this. It took a long time for it to come to fruition. You know, different reasons, COVID being one of them. But it was such a great experience to be able to watch these, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm glad Netflix put it on there. Still didn't really notice too much of a thing. Like, they were saying San and Chan wasn't being used properly. It was. It was just... it just sounds weird to us as North Americans, I guess, because, you know, especially because the dub never really used it that much before. Like, they would always be like, Mamo, which to me sounded weird because I'm used to Mamo-chan in the Japanese. Anyway, I am just, yeah, I'm excited. I'm so happy to have gotten to see these. I'm so glad that Netflix released it together at the same time. I'm glad that they, you know, they followed through with what Charlene mentioned they were going to do, Charlene Ingram, in the beginning, that they were going to try to stay with the entire voice cast through every iteration of it. That's pretty good. I still think that I would want the Deke voice actors back with the Viz scripts. That's my idea. But I don't mind some of them. Like, Jupiter's great. Mars sounds good. Mamoru's, I don't know. He's okay, I guess. I still think that we need old Luna back, like British Luna. Diana, I don't know. Like, she's far, far better than the one that Cloverway gave us, that's for sure. But she still doesn't have that adorable cuteness that Japanese Diana had from the original one. And I think maybe even from the new, like, Crystal Japanese one. But original Diana was really, really, had such a sweet voice and was perfect for a little kitten. This one, again, sounds too old like Saturn does, like just too grown up for it. But she works in, I'd say she works better for it than Saturn's voice does as sounding too old, if that makes any sense. But anyway, that's my opinion on these. I'd love to hear yours. I love these reaction videos now. I did Eurovision ones for a while, but Sailor Moon's always been one that I've been doing for a long time. You can look back on this channel and you'll see all the other ones I've done for each individual episode. I still am praying that Sailor Stars gets an episodic release, but we're probably going to get movies just like this, which, whatever, it's okay. It's just going to be rushed. But you know, the animation quality is great. It's probably the best so far of the brand new series. So we can only hope for the best with Sailor Stars as well too. But this again is the third time that the animation's changed, because Crystal seasons 1 and 2 were the same. 3 really stepped it up, and now 4 is different than 3, but not by much. And in fact, it was the original anime director, I believe, that came back to do the movie. So fingers crossed that Stars is handled well, and I'm excited for the storyline to follow the manga, because Stars is dark, but it's very great, and we can meet Sailor Heavy Metal Papillon, Leith, Nemesine, Kai, and Phi. And of course, you see Sailor Chaos and Sailor Cosmos, and the whole thing, Zero Star, Sagittarius. I'm just really excited that we're getting to this point. But will we get a Sailor V prequel? Or maybe even a continuation anime? Wouldn't that be interesting? Like I mentioned, Chibiusa gets older. The asteroid Senshi come. You get Helios and her with a love story. Kind of continues on the saga. I don't know. There's so many possibilities. Or a brand new story. Sailor Moon, another story. There you go. They're doing it with the musicals in terms of using source material to do a musical. And one that they haven't done yet. So I'm super excited about that. Alright guys, thank you so much, and let me know down below what you think. I'd love to hear from you guys. I love these discussions and stuff, and I will be back with another video soon. I don't know what on, but something. So, see you guys soon.